Hey cats, what's happening? Welcome to the man cave. Been working out here today. I got the second door done. So I got two opposing doors here to put on my shed, which is another job that I will do on another day. But I got that done today. And the wife, she was out on the mower today and enjoying her. She loves riding on that tractor, so she took care of the lawn. I did the carpentry work in the shop today, among some other few things. But before I get started today, I wanted to show you something. Look at this. Is this beautiful or what? It's like black walnut. It's hand carved. You got the eagle here, the wing cupping over the top. It's hanging on to the sign there, and it's all carved out Harley Davidson motorcycles. Pretty cool. And you're probably wondering where I got that. Thank you, Phil Ball. Phil sent me that. He had it. I don't know where he got it, but he told me that it was carved by a Navy SEAL veteran, and that he does a lot of neat carvings, but that was one of the carvings that he did, and it's one of a kind, very unique gift. And I'm very, very honored to put that on my wall with some of my other gifts that people have sent my way. Aside from that, he gave me a couple other things too. He gave me this tool bag. It's a Fat Boy Harley Davidson emblem on there. And it bolts on to the windshield. I already have a tool bag on there, and this one's quite a bit smaller than the one I have, and the one I have is pretty loaded up with stuff, so I'm not real sure what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to have a use for it somewhere. I might even use it in my Silverado for some tools. Then he also gave me these collectible playing cards. They're in a tin, a Harley Davidson tin. This one's a Springer Softail. And he gave me this one too. Pretty neat. And then the cards all have pictures of Harleys on them. I haven't opened them up. They look kind of old. I don't know. I don't see a date on them or anything. 2003. So, there you go. Let's stick them up on my workbench there. All right. I was watching the local news today, and from what I see, they're sending people back to work Monday. Which, if you're watching this Sunday night, that would be tomorrow. We've got to go back to work. If you got to go back to work, sorry. I'm retired. I don't have to go back to work. I'm done working. Well, I'm done going to my job. Let's put it that way. I'm not done working. The work never ends around here. My back hurts. My knee went out today and was hurting me. I don't know why. Every once in a while, it just clicks in my knee and it hurts, but I still keep going. I was reminded back when I was a kid though, and I think I was like probably probably about 19, 20 years old when I first started my career with the park system. And back then we had some really colorful people that worked there. When I first walked in to the job and met the crew members there, I don't think there was a one of them that had a high school education. A lot of those guys were from down south too, West Virginia, Georgia. I don't know why, but that's just the way it was. And I can't remember how many guys were on the crew, probably at least a half dozen guys on the crew of the park that I worked at, which is now a national park. It's now Cuyahoga Valley National Park, but prior to it being a national park, it was a metropolitan park, and that's where I was employed. So we had lots of acreage up there to take care of. There was some ledges up there, sandstone outcroppings, caves, and things like that in the place where I worked. So it was an interesting job. Obviously, it was interesting enough that I hung around with the park system for 44 years. But anyway, these guys, I want to tell you a little bit about some of these guys. The one guy, his name was Randolph. And Randolph was an old codger. He was blind in one eye, and he had this great big hooked nose, a big beak on him, and gray hair, kind of bald on the top, but he always wore a ball cap, and he walked kind of hunched over. But he had been there for quite a while, and he knew his way around. And to know him, you would know that he was the snitch of the crew. Yeah, anything you did that was out of line, he'd run right back to the boss and tell the boss everything. And back in those days, we didn't have a union or anything to protect us. If they didn't like the way you were working out, hit the road, you're done. You were let go just that quick. So, you did what Randolph told you to do, whether you liked it or not. And every once in a while, we'd buck up to him, stand up to him. But he was just an old guy, and you had to give him some respect. He was somewhat likable, but as for his squealing on people, that didn't go over too well. One of our main modes of transportation back then was an old dump truck, and it had a bench seat in there. It didn't have bucket seats like dump trucks today, but it had a bench seat that went all the way across, and it had a stick shift on the floor. And Randolph was the one that had to drive it because he was the senior man, and the rule said the senior man drove. So it wasn't uncommon that 3 or 4 of us would cram into the cab of this dump truck to go from A to Z, and old Randolph would drive. And he worked 2 jobs. He worked a night job washing dishes at a diner. So he was always tired, and he would be driving along, and he'd be nodding, and we kept elbowing him, "Wake up, Randy, wake up, don't fall asleep on us." And he'd, "Oh, I'm not going to fall asleep." Well, we're riding in a truck to one day, and we're heading back to the office, and boy, there was this horrendous stench, and we said, "Good grief, it smells like somebody shit their pants." Well, Randy, he started laughing and chuckling, and he said, I had to go poop, and I couldn't hold it no longer. And I think I only did a teaspoonful, so it's not that bad. Well, trust me, that was bad enough for us who had to ride in the truck until we got back to the office there. Little things like that you never forget. Oh, boy. Like I said, I was just a kid back then, and these guys have been around for a long while, probably too long. There was some other characters that worked there too. There was one old guy there. There was one old black man that worked there that didn't know how to read or write, and we had to fill out a time sheet every day. So on that timesheet, we had to have, our name and the date. We had to write at the top, and then we had to write each job that we did during the day, what time we started that job, what time we ended that job, when we started lunch, when we ended lunch, and it had to add up to 8 hours of labor, and it just kind of broke down what we did during the day. If you went out and mowed all day, you'd put mow such and such area, 4 hours. And then a half hour for lunch, and then 4 hours mowing again. So, sometimes they were pretty simple, but this old fella, he didn't know how to read or write, so somebody always had to fill out his time card for him and write in the jobs and the time. And then when you had it filled in, only thing he could do was put an X there because he didn't know how to write his own name. It's almost unheard of in this day and age, but Yeah, back then there were some people that they didn't go to school. They didn't even go to finish grade school, so they never learned their reading and writing. The one character I worked with, though, his name was Leroy. And Leroy was a character in himself. He was probably the youngest one of the crew, but I'd say he was probably in his 40s at the time when I worked there. And again, I was like 20, so he was at least 20 years older than me. And he kind of had this resemblance of kind of a scary looking guy. He was kind of lanky, but he was strong, and he talked with a little bit of a speech impediment, and he had a temper on him like that would go off like a bomb in a minute, so you wanted to make sure you didn't tick him off. Well, I always got assigned to go out and work with Leroy, and we were out one day, and we had the chainsaw with us, and we were supposed to cut down a dead tree, and it was right by the restroom. In fact, there was two restrooms. They were side by side. There was a men's, and then there was a woman, and it was nothing more than an outhouse back then. But the tree was like leaning right between the two buildings. So old Leroy, he says, "How are we gonna cut this thing down? Because I don't want it to hit the building." And I said, "Well," I said, "the way it's leaning," I said, if we notch it and make it fall between the buildings, that's even taking a 50-50 chance, because if it swings to the right or the left, it's going to destroy one of the toilet buildings there. So I said, "I suggest we put a rope in it and we can pull it, away from, so we can pull it off to the side and fall it that way." Well, he looked at it a little bit more. He didn't like my idea. He says, "I don't know." He says, "What do you think if we just try to make it go right between those two buildings?" And I said, "Man, I said, I'm not that good at cutting trees, and I don't know if you are either, but I said, I think if you don't put a rope in it," I said, "if we put a rope in it, it's 100% chance that it's going to fall where we want it to. If you're just going to notch it and drop it, there's a 50% chance it's going to whack into the building." Well, he didn't like me telling him that, and he got angrier and angrier. And he said, "I'm going to cut it the way I want to cut it, and I'm going to drop it right between those buildings there. And I just hope it doesn't." And I said, "Okay, if you're going to do that, I am not going to take any responsibility for this, because I told you it's just as easy as putting a rope in it. It's not that big of a deal. It's easy to do, and we can pull it." And nope, he says, "Damn it, we're going to do it my way. We're not putting a rope in it. We're going to cut it and it'll fall right in there." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stand over there and watch, and you go ahead and do it, and I don't want nothing to do with it." Well, he got mad. He got mad, and he lost his temper. And he reached down, and he picked up the axe. The chopping axe. And he come after me with that thing, and he said, "I'm going to chop your damn head off." Well, I ran about as fast as I could run, and he was tailing me. And I had to go up this grassy hill and up over this dip and to get back to the truck. And I jumped in the truck and locked the doors, and he was right on my heels, swinging that axe and just going crazy, yelling and screaming and carrying on. Whether he would chop my head off or not, I don't know, but when he was wielding an axe and coming after me, I'm about ready to crap my pants. I was scared to death. So he went back down over the hill, and I heard the chainsaw run, and after about 15, 20 minutes or so, he came back up the hill with the chainsaw, and I just stayed in the truck there because I thought, boy, I know he's pretty mad, and I don't want to get nowhere near him. Well, then he says, and he was always very, very apologetic after he lost his temper, so I thought he was going to try to give me a hug or something, but he says, "No, I'm sorry, I lost my temper, I didn't mean it. I wasn't gonna hurt you, and on and on and on. Well, I didn't know that, but I said, by the way, how'd the tree go? Well, he says, I dropped it, and he says it went right between the toilets, and not a problem. Well, that was the end of that. A lot of memories going way back, and so a lot of other colorful characters too. There might be some other stories down the road, but that's it for today, guys. I gotta head in the house now. It's getting late, and I told my wife it's date night, Saturday night. Last night was Friday night, is our usual date night, but we ended up going over to Mom's. We took Mom some beef stew. We made, my wife made a beautiful beef stew. We took it over there and shared it with Mom, and she was delighted. So tonight is my wife and I night. We're just gonna have our own little date. So till next time, guys, I will catch y'all later.